Hey guys, what is up? Time to break down another huge weekend of international rugby with an emphasis on the Springboks versus England, taking a deep dive into that, but I'm also going to talk about the Wallabies. I'm going to talk about the All Blacks. I'm going to talk about Italy, Argentina, Ireland. I'm going to break it all down. We're going to start with this game, which I did watch in full before the French got up over the All Blacks. What did I make of this game? Well, this was a game where I feel that the Springbok identity of 2024 really crystallized. What I mean is that they don't have to play particularly well to beat top-tier teams. We saw it against Scotland. It looked like the Boks had just rolled out of bed, with all due respect. They were rubbing their eyes, they were having some coffee, they were just trying to wake up and get their system going. They looked like men that hadn't played rugby in a few weeks. And yet, once that machine was rolling, they easily scored twice as many points as the Scots, who really were playing out of their skin that day. And the Boks were just in a different class, and I felt that was the same again this weekend. What I also noticed was that this is not really an aerobic team. When I think of an aerobic team, I think of the All Blacks. They're trying to play coast to coast. They are trying to break teams down with their relentless phase play, with the width of the attack. They're trying to outgas you. The Boks are an anaerobic team. They are happy just to stay in the fight, absorb the punches, and then when it's time to strike, they go for it. The Boks are playing with short, intensive bursts of footy that leave their opponents absolutely in the dust. And that is more than good enough right now. I mean, you look at this result at Twickenham. Now the English have endured 3 losses in a row against Southern Hemisphere teams. Not good for Steve Borthwick. We'll talk about that in a second. But they put 4 tries on the board. Only 2 for England, who started like a house on fire. They looked like men that were humiliated by their performance the week before, really not happy to lose to Australia. The All Blacks is one thing. They looked very unhappy to drop that game to the Wallabies. So they started hot, but the Springboks really weathered the storm. And it still looked like their frontline players were getting up to speed. I was a bit worried about Damien Delende and Creel in midfield. Now, I'm a huge fan of both guys, but I just thought, man, they're just coming into this game cold. Well, I needn't have worried because, in particular, Delende just showed that he can hit top form straight away. His break in the second half was what ripped the heart out of the English. It led to a try that, for me, ended the game. And here's the deal. You look at the post-contact meters, 326 to 229. So pretty much put an extra 100 meters of attack on the red rose. Now remember, that's post-contact meters. So that's denting the line and then keeping on going with the leg drive, with some support play perhaps. So when the Boks were able to break the line, they just found more space, right? They more or less shut England down when they broke. And the relentless line speed also forced England to kick a hell of a lot, which did release pressure sometimes on the Springboks. When it looked like they might be on the ropes, the English just ran out of ideas. They went to the sky. The problem is, with Apalele Farsi at the back, with Cheslin Colby, Aronsa, you have guys who, they might not be the biggest, all of them, but they're very safe under the high ball, and their positional play is just exemplary. I mean, Cheslin Colby was the man of the match. You can see why he did not put a foot wrong. Absolutely dynamic on attack. But again, despite his size, brilliant on defense, and he just never looked like he was in the wrong place. So England ran out of ideas on attack, whereas South Africa, who still kind of looked to me like they're waking up, were just in a different class. And when it came time to strike, they were just that much more clinical. So this probably could have been a bigger win, but I almost put this out to you as a challenge. Is that the South African identity? I'm not sure that they're as obsessed with the perfect 80-minute game as New Zealanders seem to be. And sometimes we're neurotic about that. Sometimes we'll get a win and we're still critical because it wasn't pretty enough. And I think that the pragmatism of the Boks has shown that that isn't always the best approach from us Kiwis. The Boks are winning. They're winning a little bit ugly. And even though the margins might not look huge, this was a game that never really seemed in doubt to me in the second half. I think England is going to lose their coach. Now, I spoke to a diehard English fan. I won't say his name. He's an actor. He loves England. And I said, man, look, I just hope you get up against Japan. He said, maybe it's better if we don't. I said, how could you say that? He said, well, if they lose to Japan, you know that the coach is going to get fired. And his feeling was maybe it's just time for a hard reset. Maybe this Borthwick era is not working out. Let's be honest. They had every chance to win this game. They had plenty of possession. They had plenty of time in the Springboks half in the last 20 minutes. They absolutely folded under the pressure of trying to win the game. It's undeniable now. It was one thing to go down to the All Blacks by a missed kick. It's another to lose to the Wallabies, who really have jumped up a level. I mean, you feel for the Wallabies because in the Rugby Championship, you're going up against the Springboks and the All Blacks. That's a pretty tough litmus test, not to mention Argentina, who put a record beating on them. But suddenly the Wallabies have lifted a gear. We'll talk about them in a second. But that chastened England. Well, this just rubs salt in the wound. So I think that if it's not a convincing display against Japan, Borthwick might be out the door. Frankly, he might be out the door anyway, because 5 losses in a row, you expect better from this English team, and they're just not delivering. As for the Springboks, they just have too many A-listers. Look at Peter Steph Toy. I mean, man of the match, phenomenal at the breakdown. Sia Khaleesi was great. As I mentioned, the midfield was great. The back three was great. You even saw a fantastic kicking game from Mani Labok, very controversial figure. I know a lot of you guys love Sasha at 10, but there's depth there, you know? And I kind of like the combination of Mani Labok and then just the solidity of Pollard, who can come on and kick the goals. To me, having an exciting attacking 10 with a player like Pollard, who's still good on attack, but is just a sure thing when it comes to the goals, when it comes to the game management, that is a combination that every international team in the world would drool over. So the Springbok attack has come a long way. Tony Brown, the new attack coach, has done wonders for them. But again, man, I'm just calling it like I see it. The Boks are playing below their potential right now, and they are still too good. How are they going to go against France? That's going to be interesting. I think they're going to have to lift a notch against the French. Speaking of the French, let's move on to the New Zealanders versus France. Difficult 1-point loss for the All Blacks, but having slept on it, I feel like there's a lot of growth in this team. And man, they had France seemingly down for the count in the first half. What we really learned from that game, though, is that statistics do not matter against the French. The All Blacks were absolutely doing a job on them in the line-out, at the scrum, and it didn't matter. The French are a little bit like the Springboks. They are inhibited sometimes. You feel like they're not at their best, but they're just holding on. They're still good defensively. They still man up in their red zone, right? They just erect that blue wall when they're near their own try line. Very hard to get through. All Blacks really struggled in the second half. They couldn't breach the defense. They had to rely on Damian McKenzie penalties. And so, similar to the Springboks, there's a theme here. They're just in an elite class. They don't have to play their best for 80 minutes. They're getting by on about half an hour of good footy. And there's such star power with Dupont. Ramos obviously was great at 10. You look at the loose forward mix there. You look at the tight 5, the pick and go, the dynamism, the offloading game from the French. They can win in bursts. They do not need to be consistent for 80 minutes. They're getting away with it for now. And like the Springboks, I think that may continue for a while. One thing we did get out of this from a New Zealand perspective is I'm seeing a lot of people now getting in behind Damian McKenzie and saying, actually, he is the guy who should be running the cutter. Beauden Barrett isn't cutting it. So it's interesting. I don't know whether you want to call the New Zealand rugby public fickle or not, but Damian McKenzie did come of age against Ireland, and perhaps on this tour, he has stood out over Beauden Barrett and is more likely to be wearing that black number 10 jersey next year. The All Blacks are going to finish up their tour against Italy. They're going to need to rotate players. I think you did see a bit of fatigue in that game from New Zealand in the second half. That's not an excuse. I don't really accept the idea that Ireland was cold last week as an excuse for losing, and therefore I'm not going to accept the narrative that the All Blacks were fatigued this week. They've got a large squad. They could have rotated players. You can't get into making excuses. France won fair and square. But looking ahead to next week, not ruminating on this loss, looking ahead to Italy, we do need to make some changes. I want to see Ruben Love at fullback. I want to see Billy Proctor at 13. We're probably going to have to bring on Anton Leonard-Brown at 12 because Geordie Barrett looks injured. Give D-Mac another run at 10. Stephen Perifetta on the bench. And I think you got to start Peter Lakai. Bring Ethan de Groot back into the team. Give him a cuddle and say, it's all right. You're not exiled from the All Blacks forever. We need to rotate players or we will get very tired against a good Italian team. These All Black boys have been going 4 weeks in a row. This is the 5th game. Going to have to make some wholesale changes. And that's not disrespecting the Italians. That's respecting the Italians. I think if you roll out the A-listers again, they're going to have lead in their legs in the second half. Italy, they got up over Georgia by 5 points. You might think that's a shocking result. Georgia is so improved. You have people calling for Wales to be replaced by Georgia in the Six Nations. You can see why on the strength of that. Good segue, by the way. Let's move on to Australia now. Man, is Wales in the doldrums. This is the worst I've ever seen them in my lifetime, and that's backed up by data. In their long, storied history, they've never dropped 11 games in a row. That's what happened here. This loss against Australia will hurt like hell. The Aussies put 50 points on them. It wasn't just running rugby. It wasn't just Tom Wright carving up. Man, is he good at the back. It wasn't just Ikitau in the centre stepping around hapless Welsh defenders. It was the Wallabies playing like a bona fide Northern Hemisphere team. Time and time again, they hit the Welsh with the rolling maul and absolutely wrecked them. They scored at least a couple of tries off the rolling maul. Great to see tactical variation from the Australians. Pretty telling that Wales were so susceptible to that. It just shows their pack is not what it used to be. And I saw a lot of hands on hips. I saw a lot of 1,000-yard stares from the Welsh players. I believe that Gatland has lost this team. I think psychologically they are cooked. I think you need a new coach. At the moment, you're going with a guy who has delivered in the past, who has a long, illustrious CV, and you're not improving. You're declining. So if anything, fresh blood, a new approach. I think the Welsh fans are so passionate, they will endure these losses and keep showing up. The stadium was packed. The atmosphere was amazing as usual. But they need to feel that they're heading in the right direction, even if it's long term. How can you feel that with Gatland? He's had every chance. And it just seems like they're a spent force. And they've got the Springboks next. Look out. That could be ugly. I think it's time for the Boks to make a statement performance. Man, that could be nasty. You never know. Maybe Wales will dig deep, put up some resistance, but on the current form book, that's going to be one-way traffic. Let's finish up with Ireland versus Argentina. Not the greatest game, a narrow win for Ireland. What did that show me? Well, it shows that, just as I said, don't write the All Blacks off, everyone. They haven't necessarily lost their aura forever. Let's not exaggerate the demise of the Irish. They've popped back up to number 2 in the world. The All Blacks dropped to 3 after their loss against France. Ireland is here in the mix. They're going to be in the top 3 for years to come. They're not suddenly a bad team just because the Kiwis got up over them last week. They looked pretty good against Argentina. And I think, everyone's saying, where's the next Sexton? I think they might have it with Jack Crowley. I thought he ran the cutter well. I think he's adventurous. I think he takes the line on really well. So, I appreciated the backline play. And Argentina's a tough team, man. They've beaten the Springboks and the All Blacks this year. I think that was really a needed win for the men in green. Just calm the farm. Give the fans a bit of hope. It's not all doom and gloom. The 19-match streak ended at Aviva. They're starting a new streak now. And I think a tight, gnarly win wasn't the prettiest game, but a tight win like that actually restores a lot of pride to the Irish. They went back to what they know works for them. Good presence at the breakdown, quick ruck ball, attacking with a lot of options and depth. At times, they played their usual game well. I would have liked to have seen them put more points on Argentina. But again, this is a very good team they beat. So sometimes you just need a win, and Ireland got that. So in summary, the Northern Hemisphere hit back a bit. Ireland and France got up. That's good. I mean, as I said in my video a week ago, one weekend of results doesn't shift World Rugby on its axis forever. It's not that the South is just going to dominate from here on in. Clearly, there's going to be a bit of back and forth, and that makes it a bit more interesting. So congratulations to France and Ireland, and of course to the Springboks and the Aussies. Fantastic results. And guys, the channel is almost at 13,000 subscribers. I really appreciate that. A shout out to all the new subscribers who came in over the weekend. If you're enjoying the videos, getting value, please like, subscribe, drop a super thanks if you feel so inclined. That really helps the channel grow. But loving having you here, loving that we're all growing this channel together, really just makes my week. It's been awesome to see. I'll be back with another one real soon. I'll catch you guys then. Take it easy. Bye for now.